Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Again, I am Kaylee Batesman, the Managing Director at She Can Code, and today we're discussing innovation and why it will be critical. I've got the fabulous Barbara Salopek, leading innovation strategist and author of Future Fit Innovation with me today. We're going to explore what innovation really means in today's volatile landscape, why psychological safety is the oxygen of creative cultures, and how leaders can build innovation systems that work in any industry, not just tech. Welcome, Barbara. Lovely to have you on here.
Hi. Well, thank you very much, and I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for invitation.
It is a pleasure to have you here. There is so much that we want to unpick with you today. Could we get started with a bit of background about you, please?
Well, what shall I say? I have more than 20 years of working experience working with innovation in this or that way. But this year is also 20 years since I moved to Norway. I'm originally from Croatia. And I had a big, desire one day I will be a leader. So I want to move abroad and have experience either studying on living or working. So I applied for the master degree here in Bergen and came here and then liked it and told my boyfriend, now husband, you have to come. I'm not coming back. So he joined. And I have been living in Croatia, Norway, US, Germany, and I speak fluently Croatian, English, German, Norwegian is my third foreign language. So
Gosh.
yes, and I have a double master degree in business, and I always love technology. And I know that your listeners are a tech woman, and I think deep inside me, that's the one of the small things that I regret in life, not choosing technology as my major. So I really love technology, and I envy all those women that are working with that.
There is always time. We get asked that a lot on webinars. Is it too late? What if I want to do this now? There is always time to find yourself falling into the tech industry. So never say never. But what is life like in Norway to have kept you there for such a long time?
Well, as I said, I started studying, doing the double master degree, and then I got a job while I was studying, and then I stayed. I was working with technology transfer office here in Bergen, helping research to get commercialized, to get become innovations, and it was very interesting. I worked with many different industries, from medical, marine, aquaculture, IT, and then after working there for almost 10 years, I started my own company, Winco Innovation. It's innovation consulting company, and I love helping organizations on being innovative and creating a truly innovation environment in their organizations in order to sustain long, like to live long and be on the market as for a long period of time.
Yes, yeah. And we're going to pick into innovation a little bit today because it's talked about constantly, yet it often feels vague or intangible. So, how do you define innovation in a way that leaders can actually act on?
That's excellent question. And it's true, everyone talks about innovation and everything is innovation. And that's why I guess it's such a common phrase to use or buzzword. But innovation, how I see it, it's not ideas. It's the ability to turn those ideas, the uncertainty, into value and do that repeatedly over a certain time. So ideas, we come up with ideas, but those ideas don't have value if you don't translate them into something tangible, if they don't become a new process, new business model, new product or service. So I define innovation actually as capability, not a single event or not a accidental event that makes a breakthrough innovation. So I define it that includes both the output, what comes out as a result of innovation process, but also as the capability, the culture you have. You have to have certain environment in the company so that innovation it really becomes your strength. It's structured ability of an organization to identify opportunities and then experiment with them, learn from those experiments, and turn those insights into a value. Either they continue, either they make, as I said, new product, new service, new process, or new business model. So all that creates value and can be used at the end, then it's innovation. Because if it doesn't have value, then it's just creativity and ideas. So people tell me often, "Oh, Barbara, you work with innovation. You must have many ideas." Or managers ask themselves, "Do we have enough ideas?" But it's not about having enough ideas. It's about having conditions that allow those ideas to be evaluated properly, to emerge, to be tested, to be also uh, said no to those. It's equally important to say no to ideas as to develop them, and then also uh, define those that will be implemented. So it should become an actionable when leaders stop asking people be innovative. It's not a pizza that you order. So it has to be an environment where innovation naturally comes on all levels throughout the whole organization, not just an innovation or product development department. It has to be inclusive for everyone in the company, and it has to come natural to them. And so that's my mission or vision to work with.
Yeah, that's that's such a great way of describing that because some companies, especially on their website, they'll say that their whole DNA is innovation and you get in is going to be like great ideas, but actually some companies and I think we've all been through them probably at one point. You get in and that company doesn't actually, it's not agile enough to move fast enough to implement those
Mm.
ideas. So, like you said, it's great having ideas, and you might be on that team that's like, yeah, we come up with a load of ideas. And actually, by the end of the year, I feel like I've achieved nothing because as a company, we couldn't actually execute anything and we couldn't
Mm.
move fast enough.
Mm.
Um, so there is a balance there. You're absolutely
Mm.
right. The ideas have to turn into something. I suppose that also helps with retaining staff, though, because I won't mention the company, but I was at a company and it was all meetings, and nothing happening. And it is soul destroying where you think,
Mm.
I'm not going to move forward here. Nothing will actually
Mm.
get through. So I actually ended up leaving, but it must help with people in terms of their staying sane at work as well. At least we achieve a lot.
Yeah, and sometimes they have meetings just for the sake to look busy.
Busy, yes,
Yes, to look
we've
busy and
all
to
been at
look
those companies.
important. Oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time, so I'm important. But then, yeah, those meetings was the purpose. Like,
Yes, how are you actually moving forward?
mm,
Absolutely.
mm.
Um, so you often say that the only certainty is uncertainty, which I love. Um, why does that make a culture of innovation absolutely critical for organizations heading into, well, now 2026 and beyond?
Well, uncertainty was always here, whatever we do in our lives. And just sometimes it's a much bigger percentage, and sometimes it's much smaller or much more risky. But what happens now in the last years with technological advancements, I think it's that the speed of uncertainty and everything that happens with it, it comes to a much faster velocity. And there is also pressure. We have to be very effective and so those two forces are increasing this uncertainty element, I would say, nowadays, and it makes it and we have to in a way it's also in our nature. If we would be living in a woods, right, the animals, they always have this uncertainty that can be eaten by other animal. So uncertainty is always there. We shouldn't be, on the other hand, so surprised by it. We should accept it. This is it. But this, I think, technological advances are making extra pressure because it's so much more closer to us than it was ever before. Um, and then, if you have an organization when there is a culture that understands this, and they have the tools, mechanisms that can manage those situations, then they will be much more resilient with those uncertainties. For example, if the new technology comes and like what happened to Nokia and Kodak, and they have been no, they weren't been reflective what's happening around them, but you have to be reflective and then you can maybe and you have to also not only reflect but also test those things that are happening around you. So you have ChatGPT, so you should be testing it.
Yeah,
You should say to the people in your organization is test it, but be careful of this and this and this.
yeah,
And you shouldn't be saying, oh no, this is not about us. We are not going to put it in. It's too much. The data will leak or this. Same with TikTok. Like all our phones, they have all our information, and then having one app more or less, it's not going to change that some organizations have all our data. So, but allowing them to test and embrace those uncertainties, we will learn about them and we will create new competences and we will be much more able to manage them then. But like not going, of course, blindly into things, but you have to. And you always in a company, you have people who like to test. So put
Yes.
them first. Let them be your, let like there is, as for example, me, as I said, I like technology, and I liked, oh, new app came, let me test it. You can try this for a new app for something else, and I like to test it. So use those people to be the first tester to give you respond, and they usually are much more literate when it comes to technology, and then they can tell you, okay, but be careful about this before we go big numbers. We have to take care of this. You should maybe check out, maybe we should pay so we don't share the data. So then it makes it much more bearable and much more resilient for organizations when you have this attitude. Then it's simply, oh no, we don't do that here. But
Yes.
uncertainty is going to happen anyway.
Exactly. And I found as well that you're so right on people that like to test, environments where you're allowed to test are so important as well, because there are certain people that thrive in those environments. We do it here. We're like, well, we'll test something, we'll check out the data. If it didn't work, we'll put it to bed, try something else. And we really encourage that that feeling of we're building as we go. It's not all we know everything that's going to happen. We test, but that also creates an environment where it's okay to fail as well. I was at an American company where I learned that, and being in an environment where you can try and it's okay to fail and just try again. Actually, looking back, I didn't realize what an effect that company had on me and my confidence, and which companies I'd want to go to next, and those that could innovate really fast, because then you quickly find yourself in an environment where you're like, no, this isn't for me. We're not going to be testing. This to me is going to seem quite boring. You're so right. The testers, they are. There is a certain type of person out there that likes that
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah, that was when I was reading scientific articles for the book Future Fit Innovation, and that one of the articles when I found out this that there are certain personalities that they like to question things and test, and it's like they're not doing this to make things difficult. It's just part of their. And I was like, yeah, you should. And we usually like to judge, especially if they're questioning status quo or asking too many questions. We like to label them in a certain way instead of saying that's this type of personality. We should actually appreciate it because they're first out there. They are first triers who are trying things and experimenting. So, and I think for a leader, it's important to know that those persons exist in this way and why they exist and how. Then it's much easier to manage and like not stopping them, not creating obstacles for them, but actually allowing them to be who they are when we're talking about inclusion. And another thing also that you mentioned that I wanted, yes, about failure and how much confidence this gave to you, and that's exactly because when I started teaching at Bay, we were in one of the first workshops, and then they said, "Oh yeah, this colleague from Oslo, she tried this and that, and she failed. And please do try things, and you will fail, but you will learn." And I was like, thank you. It gave so much confidence. It gave you so much, not confidence, but trust, or I don't know what to call it. It's you were not afraid to
Yes,
test. Even
yes,
if you fail, they will say, okay, fine, try something else. So you were like, it's completely different environment and your attitudes toward work when you're suddenly not afraid.
yes, because you
That's a
will
big
go on.
difference.
Yeah, you will put forward those ideas is
Mm,
the other thing. Because if you did fail in the past, you'd be sitting in a meeting thinking, I have a really good idea, but I'm not going to put
mm,
it forward. So yes, somebody that has said to you, you know what, it's okay that we
mm,
tried that, and it just didn't work out, and we won't do it again. But at least we've figured out, what works and
mm,
what doesn't work. Can really that can make such a difference, even
mm,
years later. And it was something that I hadn't noticed until several jobs later that actually it was that company that
Mm,
had put me in that mindset.
mm,
I did find at the time I had noticed that UK companies we can talk ourselves out of things. So I'd really appreciated being in an American company at the time because they had that attitude of try and it doesn't matter if you fail and it's fine. But I had previously come from a UK company
mm.
where I had found they didn't want you to know about things or get involved in things or
Yeah.
test things, and it was almost like in some companies in the UK, you come up with an idea and then you come up with a list of why you shouldn't do those things,
Mm,
and we
mm,
talk ourselves out of it. So it was such a breath of fresh air to be in a different culture and a
mm,
different type of company, because that for me was you could really find your feet. But I mean, you personally, you've lived all over the world. Did you find that in the US? Totally different kind of mindset to business and trying new
Well,
things.
that's as you say. When I was in the US, I was 17, and I remember we were in an ice cream shop, and then I was going for what vanilla or chocolate, and then my cousin was like, "You should try something more, something more interesting than those two." And I was like, and that was like a moment. Yeah, why I'm stuck to the old ones? That was the moment, and I told them, but now before Christmas, how this had a great impact on me, like what does it cost you to change to try some new flavor? Like it's a
Yeah.
small thing, but we like to live in our boxes, and
Yes.
especially Croatia is very much everything should be perfect, and you should do it like this, and there is like you should not show that you're vulnerable. That was at least when I was living. Now has been 20 years. Maybe things changed. So vulnerability was the negative, and also actually the research shows that when we will maybe talk later about psychological safety. But psychological safety is that you can fail, but in high hierarchical structures, high power structures, that can be confusing for the environment. If you want to achieve psychological safety and you as a leader show that you are actually vulnerable, they will not take you seriously. So while we talk
Ah,
about psychological safety a lot, you should be vulnerable, you should but that doesn't work in all environments.
yes.
So that's also important to know and to be aware. So and to take it much more slower pace, maybe if you're in an environment that actually doesn't approve as a culture that you should be vulnerable. But for example, in Norway, it's completely normal to be vulnerable, and Croatia isn't completely. It was on the different spectrum, I would say.
Ah, that's super interesting. Yeah, even being aware of that, which is not something you would notice in your first job, but you might notice as you go through. Um, yeah, I love that. You've developed a three-level framework for innovation. Can you walk us through it and explain why so many organizations get stuck at just one level?
Well, a wonderful question again, because that was the motivation for writing the book. Because I saw companies, first it was business model canvas. Everyone was crazy about this. We have this and we will have all ideas succeed. And then I have the coffee shop near where we had the office, and it went bankrupt once, and then the new one came and went bankrupt twice. And I was like, yeah, but if you do the business model canvas on them, everything was in place. So it cannot be just one thing. And then it came design thinking, and everyone was crazy about that. And I'm like, you can have the best innovation processes, the best design thinking, but if the people are not owing that, if people are not owing the innovativeness, the culture that has to be there, like that means they're afraid to speak up. They're afraid to experiment. They're afraid if they make a mistake, what will happen to them. They are afraid to come up with ideas because they are afraid that someone will laugh at them. They're afraid to comment on the ideas. Maybe they come up, but they don't, what will people around them think if they say this comment or other? So not like you can have the best innovation process in the world, but it will not work if you don't have the environment, the people, the culture. And then I was looking, and everyone talks about you should do this or you should do that. But no one talks about which barriers you will have on the way there,
Yeah.
right? And then I was like, let's see which barriers we have on the individual level. And that's that, oh, I'm not creative. Don't like we should be more innovative. Now we all have to be creative. Oh no, 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 that's not me. I'm not there. So that's the first thing, that people are afraid and they don't think that believe in their creativity. But everyone is creative. We all are creative. We all we are not artistic. That's two different things. Being artistic is one part of creativity. And then also the another obstacle or level on the individual level is functional fixedness. The more we learn about something, or when we learn about the function of a subject or object, we stick to that. We cannot, it's very difficult for us to imagine that object to be used for something else, and that's functional fixedness. And the research shows that all innovation there managed to overcome this obstacle of they managed to think outside. And the iPhone is the perfect example, because the phones were first to talk and it was a keyboard, and now they are our small TV sets that we have. It's completely auxiliary. The talking is completely auxiliary function of the phone. So maybe it shouldn't be called phone anymore. TVs that we can call each other. So that's one level. So if you're a leader and want to have your company innovative, you have to understand those things, how people, what are the barriers in front of us, and help your team to overcome those. And then we go on team. Individuals make teams, right? And then on team level, everyone said you should have a diversity. Yes, you should have diversity, and it's important to have diversity, because then you have better inputs, more perspectives on the subjects than if you have people all cheering for the same football club, went to the same school, same gender, then they all look at the things in the same way. But the world, we don't have one shoe size, right? One average shoe size that should fit or not fit everyone else who doesn't have 39.5, right? We have shoe size for all different. And then also it should be with all other services as well. We should be more inclusive in order to expand our markets and customer segments, potential markets we can enter. But then having diversity, it doesn't mean it will work if people don't feel psychological safe. So you have to also work on that. And then when we move to organizational level, we have technological advancements and sustainability that also put lots of pressure on organizations and the leaders, because it happens so fast, and it can be regulatory pressure, and you have to juggle all that. And so I was explaining all those elements in the book, and how you can overcome those in order to enable the organization to be a little bit more innovative than just by adopting one framework and then wondering why it didn't work.
Yeah. You know what, when you got to point 3, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I was thinking, because that psychological safety in diversity, it was reminding me of our partners here at She Can Code. So our partners, they work with us because they want to diversify their workforces, and they want to share what it's like to work there. And they want that diversity. They want the diversity of opinions in meetings. But you're so right. If you don't have psychological safety, you're not going to speak up in those meetings. So even if you do employ a diverse workforce, they're not going to feel safe to share that diverse voice within that meeting anyway. And there is something that I say on here a lot. Someone said it on the first episode of Spilling the Tea, and it was about having a Slack channel. So when people, so women in tech groups, they go, we have a channel where we share our news. We have a group where we put all of our women in tech news in that channel, whether it's on Teams or in Slack or wherever they put it. But then but how do you actually feel when you come to work every day? It's not a case of we have a group where we can drop all of our women in tech things and what we're doing, but how do you actually feel when you come to work every day, and whether or not you feel like your company cares about you, whether you can speak up if something is wrong, but how lovely that you can drop things in a group. And it's a lot more than that.
And when we are talking about speaking up, there was an article that I included in the book, and I loved it because it was so much me. And it says that about speaking up and staying silent. We stay silent when we know that we cannot change something. And we speak up, we voice when we believe that it can change something. So if you have psychological safety not in the place, if you don't feel safe that actually you can change something or you will be appreciated, you will stay silent. But if you have an environment when people actually think that it will change something, then they will voice
It
their
is worth
thoughts.
speaking up for. Yeah, that I hadn't even thought of that. And you're probably doing that unconsciously as well, where
I
you
know
just
because
kind of
I know I had once we had the project and then we had a conflict and I was like, oh, we need to address this and we have to speak up and we have to talk to the financial mechanism and the partner from Mollison was like, Barbara, what do you hope to achieve? And I was like, change for the better. And I always go with this. I'm always,
yeah,
I'm voicing too much because I always think we should say so we can change it for the better. But
yes.
it doesn't work always this way. I learned.
Not, no, not always. I always find that in tech as well, that people, so this podcast was started to bust a lot of myths about what it's like to work in tech, that you have to be highly technical, you have to have a computer science degree. And people have that misconception that, you might come into tech, everybody speaks in acronyms and you have to go away and Google things because you don't understand what people are saying. And in our community, we try and share that that's okay if that's happening and that everybody is having that feeling sometimes, that imposter syndrome sometimes,
Mm,
but that is not every single job in tech, and that, you don't have to be sitting there thinking, oh, I can't speak up. I don't feel like I feel safe to
mm,
speak up in this meeting, because you have to be highly technical to come into tech, and it is that psychological safety feeling of, am I good enough to come
mm,
into the tech
mm,
industry?
mm.
And we always try and bust that myth. You don't have to be a coder, you don't have to be really good at maths, all of those things.
That's a wonderful thing that you're working with. I never thought about it. I think that's great. Like not speaking up because you're afraid that you're not good enough.
Happens a lot in tech.
That's good that you saw it, that you detected it and working with it. I think that's
Yes,
very
and to
good.
encourage more people to just come in and try is the thing.
Mm,
And then a lot of, our community, so we encourage our community to come to our hackathons and say, just give it a try.
mm,
You can fail, it doesn't matter, it's just a fun day. But sometimes if you haven't been in that environment where you can
mm,
try something, you don't actually realize that you are good at something.
mm,
And it doesn't have to be technical. You don't have to code, for instance.
mm.
And we've touched upon psychological safety a few times already, and it is a recurring theme in your work. Why do you describe it as the oxygen of innovation, and what happens when it's missing?
Well, as we said like earlier, we touched it a little bit in different context already, because people will stay silent. They will not talk,
Yeah,
and if they don't talk, we don't do change things. Nothing is happening. Everything is done by default, and we are just continuing doing what we have been always doing. So there is no improvements, nothing, and then slowly you die. You come to some mature level, the S curve, and then some other comes and then it will overtake you. And it's so important that people feel safe to ask questions, as we said, that there are some people that are much more curious, like they dare to ask a little bit more, so not to perceive them as difficult, but that's just the way they are, and actually appreciate those things, that people feel safe to challenge ideas, and that it's okay to admit uncertainty, and share the early or imperfect thinking. So because all this can spark discussions, can spark the new connections, because innovation happens when the knowledge that we have, that we can combine it in new ways and that create new things. That's scientific innovation, and everyone has scientific innovation in what they are doing, right? If
yeah,
you have been a plumber for 20 years, you know everything about it. And when you come to the new house, something different is there, but you have so much deep knowledge that you can do something that will work. And that's creativity and that's innovation, right? It
yeah.
doesn't have to do anything with the picture, with the painting, with the music. It has to do with your knowledge that you can combine in new ways and create something new, which creates
Yes.
value.
And bring about change at that house, for instance.
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
confident enough that you can bring
Yeah.
about that
But
change. Yeah, and you
if you
stay
don't
there.
have all those things,
Yes,
then nothing will happen.
exactly. There are some companies that are very good at retaining their people as well. I remember talking I was at an event in the States, and it was for an IBM event. And I remember everybody that I spoke to there had been there like 40 years plus. And I'm like, how are certain companies doing this? But like you said, they're in that environment where they know they can bring about change, because the amount of change that has happened in the industry in
Mm,
like the last 40 years, to
mm,
keep people that long, they must have been in that environment where
mm,
you
mm,
know that if you do speak up, you can bring about change.
mm,
Instead of people thinking, I'll just do a bare minimum of 1 year at least, so it looks good on my CV, and then I'll go and find somewhere else,
mm,
which
mm,
isn't
mm.
good for the company, obviously.
Or, for example, I know the companies where they say, I don't want any negative news in this meeting.
Yes.
Like,
Get that too.
like,
We can't all be negative, so nobody say anything negative.
so
Okay, great.
then it just like false positivity. Like it doesn't have to be
Yeah,
negative. It has to be this and this happens. Let's discuss with the aim to improve it. Like let's find the solution. Everyone makes mistakes. You didn't sleep well this night, so you send an email with fail information, wrong information. Everyone has this. You have small kid, or your mom died, or your father died, or you break up, or you're divorcing. I don't know. Everyone will make mistakes.
yes,
And just
exactly.
pretending they're not there is not making them go away.
We're not going to talk about that in this meeting. It's fine. Nothing bad happened. And it is like burying your head in the sand and just moving forward and having not addressed it. Yeah, not at all helpful. Um, so there's a lot of debate around hustle culture, long hours,
Mm,
and models like Silicon Valley's 996.
mm.
Are these approaches helping innovation, or are they quietly killing it?
I think they're killing it absolutely. I have been working in Croatia 7 to 7 for some time. And first it killed, it killed me physically because, I have not been doing sleeping well. I haven't been running, so my body was. And, it says, mene sana in corpore sano. When you have the health body, you have the health brain.
Yep.
Uh, but from the business perspective, imagine the Formula One pit, or imagine ER, where patient just came from the street. It was a car accident, and now you tell the doctors innovate while you are fixing the person. Like, are you crazy? Like, think about new solutions. How we should do this better next time. Like, this is what you are asking when you ask people to work nine to nine, 6 days a week. Like
Yeah.
this is exactly that. And of course, they can do that for a week, maybe two. But you also deplete your resources. Like you also get tired and you get saturated from all this. And then also the quality of output is not going to be good as it would be if you are rested. So yeah, so I have very balanced working days. I work a lot still.
Yeah.
I work also on the weekends, and I have my own company, so you don't. But I am very, very conscious about having not too many hours, having normal sleep, having exercises, because that gives you then a balance, and then you can be much more creative and innovative, I think, and much better brain, like brain
Mhm.
capacity to do cognitive thinking, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I, I I couldn't agree more. And I think that goes. I love your example there with the doctor. It's exactly what that is, because it goes back to that psychological safety as well, to be able to set the boundaries at work, that I'm being pushed too hard, or I need to set those boundaries because
Mm,
I might have moved into a different phase of my life where
mm,
I'm now back from mat leave and I need to
mm,
set some boundaries for children. Or, but again, that's being in an environment where you feel safe enough
mm,
to
mm,
voice that. And again, if people don't have that,
mm,
they leave because they're feeling like I'm just going to get pushed and pushed and pushed. And worked, and now I can't innovate and also enjoy my job as well, because
yeah.
that we always have that feeling here of, we like that when we look back on the year, so
Mm,
much has happened and changed and how we've evolved. Because if you're at a company where you do look back and all you've done is just burnt yourself out and you've been so bogged down in your day to day and nothing has changed,
mm.
it's just that's not fun. Nobody wants to be at that.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're in constant panic mode, so to say, because you're constantly like, oh, I have to deliver, I have to deliver, I have to work, I don't work. So you cannot think clearly.
Yeah.
And like you get like your head is not, it cannot breathe
Yeah.
to also resonate what's happening. And then it's what I, like also when I was writing the book, I was working the whole week. Then on the weekends, I would wake up early at 6, and then I was the whole weekend I would be working with the book, and then on Monday I would be working again. And I felt so tired on Monday.
Mm.
And you
Yeah.
have to take breaks because then you can come up, and then the brain will still work in the backyard, in the back of it, and then suddenly the things will come together. Because like when you are, okay, now think out of the box, now think out of the box. And if you're hearing that, and like from 9 to 9, 6 days in a week, it doesn't make you think out of the box. But
Yeah.
if you have been working, you went for a walk, you are looking how the birds are singing, you enjoy the woods and everything, and then suddenly an idea pops up. Oh, I should do also this.
Yes.
Like you like, and I think those moments happen much more often when you're in this stable, balanced, than when you are in this panic phase.
Yes, yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. I have a volunteering role that I do at the weekend, and that is where my mind clears, and
Mm.
I tend to have ideas during that time,
Yeah.
which I think my team hates because I'll come back and be like, I had an idea. But you're so right. That's when everything starts to
Mm.
become clear, rather than you're in panic mode every day and somebody just turns around and says to
Mm.
you, "What's in your locker?" And you're like, "Nothing. I've got nothing,"
Yeah,
because
because
I
I think you
can't
have
think
to leave the
clearly.
brain process it by itself
Yes.
without you pressing it. So, and
Yeah.
And innovation is energy, not effort, not panic.
Yes, exactly. Um, Many leaders assume that innovation it only applies to tech companies or startups. They do move very fast, obviously. Um, what would you say to organisations in more traditional industries that think innovation isn't for them?
Yeah, so what's the traditional, like dairy, bread, bakery, but they all come with also new things. They come up with a new recipe. So I don't think we like to also think that innovation means startup and tech, but innovation is everywhere in all fields. We cannot say. Yeah, and I don't like when they equal innovation to technical developments, because technical developments, if they're not used, they are not innovation either.
Yeah.
So, and those, if you call it traditional or some other industries, in order to stay relevant on the market, they have to improve because consumer demands change and they improve, they evolve, and they want new things. And suddenly people don't want to eat meat, so you have to think which kind of burger you are going to make now. Or suddenly people don't want to drink alcohol so much as they did before. So what? Are you going to bankrupt, or you're going to produce non-alcoholic champagne or non-alcoholic wine? That's
Yeah.
additional industry if you want it like. But so if you want to sustain on the market in the long run, no matter which industry, you have to observe what's happening around you and adapt and come up with the new solutions.
Yes, definitely. I can agree more. And that again takes a certain person, like you said, with the testers, the diversity on your team, is so important because it will be people that will be saying, yes, have you noticed that people are drinking less alcohol? How are we going to get around this? And to have that diversity on your team for somebody to notice that as well and to put that forward,
Mm.
again, takes a very different person compared
Mm.
to other people that are doing,
Mm.
the everyday and are doing great things and making sure the company functions as well. It can be very hard to innovate in tech because we've had some community members on here say things like when you are constantly challenged as well with learning, you have to learn so much and you have to be that type of person that is always willing to keep learning, like way past university in tech to keep up
Mm.
to date. So doing that plus trying to innovate and being a job and everything else that comes with it, it can actually be quite overwhelming in tech
Yeah, it
as
is.
well.
It is. And I was also like thinking, like we are quite young, and so much happened like since
Yeah.
2000, and we are learning. Now we were using Excel and PowerPoint. Do you use PowerPoint? Almost no. I use Canva, and then ChatGPT came, then you use ChatGPT, then some other, like we constant, and I'm like, I'm tired as well sometimes.
Yeah, and you
I'm
have
very
to.
curious. I love to learn, but it's like, oh my God,
Too
too
much.
much.
It's too much sometimes, and you have to keep up with that, even
Yeah.
if you're not using it yourself. So our hackathons, we actually had a discussion only this week about AI and whether or not we are going to allow it to be used at our hackathons, or is it
Mm.
actually considered as cheating? It's okay for people to check their code, but we don't want them to come up with their entire project using AI. So even things like that, we're like, actually, since
Yeah.
our last hack, we hadn't even thought of that, so
Mm.
you do have to keep up with um, things that are going on, at least
Mm.
bare minimum.
And one example about technology and whether that is innovation. I was just reading a book and I love the example. So they did a research here in Norway. They were using AI to scan the documents from the patients before the surgery in order to detect in a second if the patient is allergic to some of the substance the patient will be given during the operation so they can, and it worked fantastically. But
Oh,
it cannot be used because there is so much private data
yes.
in it, and they had to kill it.
Oh no. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also because there was so much data and it was collected precisely for that research. And GDPR says that you can collect for a certain purpose, but if the people didn't say yes to other purposes, you cannot use it for other purposes. So it could only be used for the research and developing something like for the use as a service. It apparently was too complicated and too much GDPR issues. So now we have technical advancement that cannot be innovation
It
because,
can't be. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
or there was another example in the book. She's talking about the guy who has been made recruitment algorithm, AI, and then he find out that that is biased towards men, of course, because and then the question, the moral question, ethical question was, does he report that? So they have additional months to adjust it to make it, the right, or he doesn't. And then if he goes to the management, the manager says, if we don't do it, the competitor is doing it and they're killing us and they are doing it biased anyway. And
Yeah.
they are losing the market competition. So it's so much things about technology that we are not thinking that, that
Yeah.
it's that we are thinking through one layer, the same as it with innovation. One layer, do the design thinking, you are done. But it's not that simple.
Yes. Especially in things like recruitment. In that way, it is that data is fed in by a person, and it can be biased in so many different ways.
Mm,
And the conversations around that and
mm.
AI at the moment. And what we're actually feeding it and what
Yeah, because
results it's
especially
giving you.
because they did, even if you move out the gender, according to the data, it still can detect whether it's a male or female, and
Ah,
it still enhances the biases. So
oh
it's not
gosh.
it's not so one layered as we
Yes,
think.
yes, exactly. Um, Barbara, I could keep picking your brain on this topic for a lot longer, but we are already out of time, I'm afraid. It's been an absolute pleasure
Thank you.
chatting with you about innovation today. So thank you so
Likewise.
much. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you for inviting me, and I love your podcast, and I will continue listening it.
Thank you very much. We're going to include a link to your book as well
Thank you.
for our listeners and our community. So everybody listening, please go and check that out. We will drop it in our community as well. And to everybody listening, as always, thank you for joining us. And we hope to see you again next time.